Chapter 465. The next day early morning, many villagers of Woodleaf woke up from their sleep and were stunned by a series of news. What? Dozens of ninja villages appeared outside the village? What? The entire ninja world formed the Shinobi World Alliance? What? Garashi-sama became the leader of the alliance? Oh, I must be still asleep. I'll go back and sleep for a while. This news was too shocking, not to mention ordinary ninjas. Even the big clans were stunned. In the Hyuga clan's land. As expected of Garashi-sama, Hizashi said excitedly. In just one night, he turned the world upside down. Hayashi nodded with a shocked expression. The leader of the shinobi world. This is a great change that has never happened in thousands of years. In the Uchiha clan's wooden house, Fugaka said with emotion. I heard that Garashi-sama easily defeated Uchiha Madara last night. Now those idiots who clung to the pride of the Uchiha should be able to recognize the reality. Itachi said with admiration. With Garashi-sama, peace is finally no longer an illusion. Sasuke listened and remembered the scene he saw a few days ago, and he couldn't help but feel excited. I will also become a strong person like Garashi-sama in the future. Compared to the shock and joy of Konoha's people, the villagers of the other 4 great ninja villages, and those small ninja villages were inevitably some of the loss of being uprooted, and the resistance of living under someone else's roof. However, after listening to some villagers of Rock Crypsis, their resistance and loss turned into joy and fear. Such a powerful Rock Crypsis was beaten into ruins, and it was under the protection of Garashi-sama. If they didn't migrate, they might have been dead by now. In a large conference room, the people of the various villages took their seats one after another, and they looked at each other awkwardly. In the end, I couldn't help but ask, Tsuchikage, I heard that you had a big battle with the Akatsuki last night? Inoki only felt that this was a bit harsh. Was that a big battle? It was clearly waiting for Garashi to save them. However, he also knew the importance and urgency of the matter. It was necessary to explain the strength of Akatsuki. In addition to the Kages of the various villages, many famous strong people have also been resurrected. For example, Yunin's former Hachibi Jinchuriki, Sand Crypsis's puppet ancestor, Sakumo, Woodleaf's White Fang, and Uchiha Madara and Shinju Hashirama. What? AI's eyes widened. It's not enough for those bastards to resurrect my dad. They even resurrected my cousin? Chiyo frowned. Puppet ancestor? Empress Shomi, I asked. Uchiha Madara, is he really that powerful? Inoki nodded slowly. Even if it's just the Edo Tensei, he can still destroy the Rock Crypsis in one blow, and even pull down meteorites from the sky. His strength is not in the same dimension as ours. Of course, no matter how powerful he is, he's still no match for Garashi. In the other direction, Mitokado Hamura and Udatane Koharu had complicated expressions on their faces. Although they said that they were going to resign from their positions, they couldn't help but participate in such a rare event where the major villages formed an alliance. And it was a major event led by Konoha. Hamura sighed. I didn't expect that Uchiha Madara, who was so strong, would lose. Sandame laughed. He lost to Shodame-sama. Garashi's strength now is not weaker than Shodame-sama, and he may even be stronger. It's natural for him to defeat him. Koharu also sighed. The leader of the shinobi world. Maybe we really did something wrong. If we supported him back then, Danzo wouldn't have been wrong, and Woodleaf would have a new appearance. In fact, this is also good. Sandame comforted. Hand over the power, and hand over the world to the young. In the midst of these discussions, Garashi walked in. I'm sorry for calling everyone here at such a busy time. As soon as his voice fell, many people were eager to flatter him. It's Rice-sama who worked hard last night, and you didn't forget to call us here. Rice-sama, you must take care of your body. You still have to lead us to victory against the Akatsuki. Raza and the others froze. They really couldn't say such words. These leaders of small villages simply refreshed their understanding of moral integrity. Garashi smiled reservedly. Then let's get straight to the point. Today, I called everyone here mainly for 3 things. First, please do your best to appease the villagers. Coming to a completely unfamiliar place, it's inevitable that they will feel uneasy and afraid. I didn't ask. Just as AI opened his mouth, the people of small villages interrupted him. Garashi-sama, rest assured, no one will make trouble. Our people will know their place. AI couldn't help but stare at them angrily. Can these bastards not interrupt? The person who spoke felt a little guilty after being stared at, but he quickly returned the stare. Everyone is a member of the alliance. Who is afraid of who? Shushi continued. Then we need to organize all the shinobi from the major shinobi villages and arrange a super large barrier that covers all the shinobi villages. The enemy has the ability to destroy a city in one blow, so we must determine the battlefield outside the barrier. Everyone nodded in agreement. They didn't want to follow in the footsteps of Rock Crypsis. That's what we should do, but Anoki hesitated. Even if we gather all the shinobi from the major shinobi villages, it may still not be enough to cover all the shinobi villages and have a strong defensive ability. Garashi pondered for a moment. Then use a combination barrier. Let the chunins and genins of each village act as the nodes of the barrier. With the power of 70 to 80,000 people, it's enough to block the enemy outside the barrier. That's true, but AI said in a deep voice. Even the chunins are transferred. What about the war? This is the last thing I want to say. Garashi said. The White Zetsu army is out of control. What we actually have to deal with is the members of the Akatsuki and their resurrected Edo Tensei. In the face of this level of power, ordinary chunins don't even have the qualification to intervene. Instead of forcing them to participate in the war, it's better to let their power play in a more meaningful place. Raza couldn't help but sigh. In the past wars, jonins appeared as captains, but in this war, jonins are just small soldiers. Jonins are just small soldiers. Kage and the village leaders are captains, and the leader is the commander of the alliance. Empress Shomiai also sighed. The standard of this war is really high. After they finished sighing, Garashi added, in this war, I will stop Uchiha Madara and Hashirama, and Nagato with the Rinnegan. As for the others, I will trouble you to stop them. Hearing Garashi's arrangement, Sandame couldn't help but ask, Garashi, aren't you going too far? Empress Shomiai was worried. 2 legends, 1 myth, this is too much for you. AI nodded. We 4 Kages should be able to deal with 1. Anoki frowned. Although you are stronger than Uchiha Madara, you also fought for some time last night. Taking advantage of his distraction, you succeeded in sneak attacking him. This time with the other 2, it's really too much. Garashi laughed. When did you have the illusion that I used all my strength last night? If it weren't for the fact that I was worried about the first and second Hokage-sama's ambush, I would have defeated him long ago. Anoki's eyes widened. Isn't that your limit? Garashi sighed. I haven't used all my strength for many years. Even I don't know how strong I am now. Chapter 466. In addition to the major ninja villages, the Akatsuki was also shocked by the news of the formation of the Ninja Alliance. In the base of the Rain Village, hearing Yahiko's words, Raiga was surprised. No wonder they transferred everyone overnight. It turns out that they had formed an alliance in secret. Sasori said in a deep voice. It took less than a day from the bordered soil to the formation of the alliance. This kind of action is really terrifying. Kisame said in amazement. Only Shimizu Garashi can have this kind of appeal to mobilize the entire ninja world. I'm not saying this for you to be amazed. Yahiko said helplessly. The final battle is coming. At least show me a little bit of nervousness. Haha, isn't it the same with or without me? Raiga's laughter was a little sad. He still has a clear understanding of his position. He was at the bottom before, but now with so many strong Edo Tensei, his position has plummeted again. The reason why he can still stay in the core is mostly because of his identity as an elder of the organization. Kisame shrugged. In the next war, the role we can play is indeed minimal, so I can only say that I will do my best to fight. Yahiko scratched his head. No, everyone is still very important. At this time, Nagato said. In this war, let me take the Edo Tensei army to participate in the war. It's good if we can win, but if we lose, you all have to escape. Nagato, how can you say such discouraging words? Conan was surprised and said anxiously, we haven't lost yet. Hashirama and Uchiha Madara can defeat them. Yahiko was dissatisfied. I am the leader of the Akatsuki. It's not your turn to show off. Nagato shook his head slightly. The Edo Tensei form can't exert their full strength. Not to mention that I have to suppress Hashirama's consciousness. It's good enough if they can exert 70% of their strength in the end. Although 70% of their combined strength is already very terrifying, I still don't have much confidence in stopping Shimizu Garashi, because I suspect that he didn't even use his full strength last night. Everyone asked in disbelief, isn't that his full strength? Nagato's expression was heavy. Although it's just a guess, it's not impossible. After all, he's someone who can create miracles. Because of this, you need our help even more, Yahiko said solemnly. Moreover, we don't have to defeat Garashi. As long as we catch the Jinchuriki, we will win. Conan nodded again and again. As long as you can stop him for a while, we can catch the Jinchuriki. Raiga rubbed his hands and smiled. If you're really worried, you can leave the animal path in the base. If it really comes to a point of no return, you can summon us back with your psychic abilities. Nagato frowned. I have to control the Edo Tensei army and suppress Hashirama's consciousness. In this case, it's difficult for me to react quickly, and a delay of a few seconds in the war is likely to lead to a different scene. Since it's a war, we can't not take any risks. That's it, when the time comes, you can pull people according to the situation. Raiga waved his hand with a heroic aura. It's not that he doesn't want to escape, but the problem is, where can he escape to? If the Akatsuki loses, the ninja world will become a whole. And if he wants to escape, he can only hide in the mountains and forests forever. He doesn't want to do that, so he intends to fight seriously. Seeing that the others didn't refute, Nagato took a deep breath and said, Okay, we'll do as you say. Back to the topic, Yahiko asked. The Alliance seems to be mobilizing 70,000 to 80,000 people to set up a barrier. Nagato, is it possible to use Naidame Naruto's Flying Thunder God Jutsu to cross the barrier and directly teleport in? Nagato shook his head. I've already experimented with Tobarama's body before, and the Flying Thunder God Jutsu he left behind before his death all disappeared. It should have been erased by Minato and Shimizu Garashi. They're really cautious, not leaving any flaws for us. Yahiko sighed. Then we can only attack from the front. Suddenly, Yahiko's spirit rose. He looked at Aizen and asked, Uncle, can the spy you developed break through the barrier from the inside? Aizen also shook his head. Although his position in Woodleaf is high, a barrier of 70,000 to 80,000 people can't be broken by one person. Well, I'm thinking too much. Although he can't do it, maybe I can try. Yahiko suddenly looked up. Uncle, what do you mean? Aizen chuckled softly. I can try to sneak into the barrier with Genjutsu, and then at the critical moment, use a large-scale Genjutsu to control the surrounding people and temporarily disable the barrier. Hearing Aizen's words, Yahiko quickly remembered the Genjutsu he used to control hundreds of people in an instant, and couldn't help but be overjoyed. Great, the key to capturing Jinchuriki depends on you. Aizen nodded slightly. Leave it to me. Outside the building. Form the Ninja Alliance. Hashirama exclaimed. Kazuna's disciple is really powerful. He easily did what we couldn't do. Brother, you don't have to be modest. Tobarama comforted him. If you didn't create the era of the ninja village, ending the hatred between clans, and improving the structure from a clan to a village, he wouldn't have succeeded so easily. It can be said that this is the result of 2 generations of hard work. Hashirama shook his head and said, It's far more difficult to make everyone a family than to let them sit at the table. On the side, Madara listened to their conversation. His eyes were calm, and there was no sign of shame and anger last night. The Ninja Alliance, interesting. However, to think that a mere Edo Tensei can trap me, how laughable. He was indeed very unhappy last night, but to say that he was blinded by anger was underestimating him too much. After Hashirama's death, he was willing to be silent for decades, and even directly bet on the future. His patience has long been tempered to be as firm as a rock. You kept the black stick I gave you. Should I say that you are greedy or stupid? Recalling the power he felt from bordered soil last night, Madara chuckled. That black stick is the consciousness I left in my heyday. As long as I get it back, I can use the 6 paths technique to forcibly break the Edo Tensei. Instead of using bordered soil to break the Edo Tensei, it's better to control bordered soil at the last moment to seize the Jinchuriki. It's just that it's a bit troublesome to control him. Although the black stick can interfere with the flow of chakra in bordered soil's body, and even control bordered soil's body, but that's under the condition that bordered soil's resistance is not strong. Maybe I can find an opportunity to seriously injure him. Well, it's a revenge. P.S. Tomorrow night at 3 p.m. Chapter 467. With Garashi's order, the entire Wood Leaf, and even the Alliance, began to operate like the most sophisticated war machine. Everyone in the Alliance was very enthusiastic about this. The threat of the demonic disaster, the encounter of the rock Crypsis, reminded them all the time what would happen if they lost the war. Therefore, under the external threat of the Akatsuki, everyone grew rapidly. Ordinary people encouraged each other and helped to build defensive facilities. Genin and Chunin worked hard to learn the hand seals. Jonin formed teams to familiarize themselves with each other. The Kage and leader shared the abilities of the resurrected powerhouses in their villages, and then made battle plans. Everything was proceeding in an orderly manner. However, everyone knew that this calm on the surface wouldn't last long. The Akatsuki couldn't just watch them develop. The war could break out completely at any time. 2 days later in Minato's house, Shinakushina waved her fist angrily. Garashi, why don't you let me participate in the war? Garashi explained. Jinchuriki is the main target of the Akatsuki. Appearing on the battlefield will give the enemy a chance. Shinakushina refused. Didn't you say that the Akatsuki has long been prepared to replace me with the Ginkaku and Ginkaku brothers? That's just a backup plan. Garashi shook his head slightly. There's a better choice, why would they give it up? I'm the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. How can I be caught so easily? Maybe I can even scatter their forces on the battlefield. Shinakushina waved her hand indifferently. Besides, Kurama has been waiting for the day to beat up Uchiha Madara and Naruto for a long time. As soon as her voice fell, a little orange fox jumped out of Shinakushina's head and asked impatiently, Garashi, I heard from Shinakushina that you beat up that bastard Madara? It's not a beating, I just bullied his Edo Tensei. Garashi said modestly. That's enough. The little fox waved his paw like an old man. Uchiha Madara, that bastard, has always been arrogant. He's definitely not happy to be bullied by you. By the way, that bastard Hashirama, beat him up for me. Garashi sighed. You know my situation. Madara's situation can't be applied to the first Hokage. Then I won't beat him up. Kurama shook his head and pondered for a moment. Then, he waved his claws and said, But I have to be the one to seal him. Garashi had a strange expression. You also know sealing techniques? That guy Shikaka knows sealing technique, so of course I can also learn it. Kurama rolled up his sleeves and roared fiercely. In order to say that sentence in front of Hashirama, I worked very hard. Shinakushina raised her hand. I can testify that Kurama has been working very hard. After knowing that the first Naruto has been resurrected, he hasn't played cards for 2 whole days. Garashi was shocked. That's really a strong determination. Shinakushina nodded and said, So, even if it's for Kurama's determination, you have to let me go to the battlefield. This, Naruto was eager to try. Kurama too also applies to fight. Naruto, you can't go. Shinakushina directly denied. Why can you but not me? Naruto shouted. I'm also Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. I don't want you to go because you'll be injured that day. Shinakushina said gently. Naruto tilted his head and looked confused. No, I'm in good health and, boom! A slender and powerful arm directly smashed through the floor in front of Naruto. And even the house shook a few times. Then Shinakushina's faint voice came from the side. You'll get hurt because I'll spank your ass. Naruto shivered and wailed in his heart. Dad, come back and take care of your wife. It seemed that God heard his prayer. And 2 figures appeared at the door. However, their bodies were a little stiff. Jiraiya swallowed and whispered. Minato, It's time for you to show your majesty as the head of the family. Minato naturally wouldn't be fooled. Although Shinakushina would definitely give him face in front of outsiders, it's hard to say what would happen after they leave. So Minato said righteously, Jiraiya-sensei, you're wrong. There's no such thing as the head of the family here. Everyone is their own master. Jiraiya curled his lips. Say that to Naruto, and see if he believes it or not. At this time, Naruto also noticed the arrival of the two. At first he was happy, but soon his small face fell. Why do I feel that the two of them are not as good as me? Shinakushina pulled out her arm, as if nothing happened, and smiled. Jiraiya, Sama is here. Minato, how can you let sensei stand at the door? Coming quickly. The two followed her advice and quickly walked in. Feeling a little awkward, Jiraiya touched Naruto's head and smiled. Little Naruto, do you know who I am? Naruto nodded. Yes, I know. You're the legendary Sanhai. Haha, yes, I'm the daimyo. Jiraiya was stunned and corrected him with a smile. Naruto, you're wrong. It's Sannin. Right? Naruto didn't hide the contempt in his eyes. I heard from my classmates that you're a perverted pornographic novelist. Jiraiya coughed wildly and waved his hand again and again. That was when I was young. I've already turned over a new leaf. Naruto tilted his head. Didn't you change your pen name and continue to write? Jiraiya's eyes widened. You know this too. Ahem, no, who spread this rumor? Naruto decisively betrayed someone. I heard it from Kakashi-san. He said that your style of writing can be recognized at a glance. Haha, so my style of writing is so recognizable. Jiraiya shouted complacently, and then found himself surrounded by contemptuous eyes. Wait, I mean someone deliberately imitated my style of writing. That's too much. However, Shinakushina just patted Naruto's head and said earnestly, Naruto, you have to thank Jiraiya-sensei for setting an example for you. Jiraiya couldn't help but burst into tears. Shinakushina was still a loyal person. She still believed in him. Naruto asked, puzzled. Example? Yes. Shinakushina sighed. No girl likes such a wretched person. Naruto suddenly realized. No wonder Kakashi-san is said to be a genius and very handsome. But he hasn't had a girlfriend. Is it because of his wretched temperament? Jiraiya froze and cried silently. Was he a bad example? Minato couldn't stand it anymore, and took the initiative to change the topic. Garashi, in fact, Jiraiya-sensei came to see you today. See me? Garashi asked. Jiraiya calmed down and asked, I heard that the leader of Akatsuki is a person named Yahiko. Chapter 468. Yahiko? Garashi pretended to be surprised and asked, Jiraiya, Sama also knows them? Jiraiya nodded with a complicated look. They are my disciples. In fact, I was suspicious when those people with Rinnegan suddenly appeared. But they called themselves Pain, so I thought it was a fluke. Minato on the side was surprised. They are also Jiraiya-sensei's disciples? Naruto also widened his eyes. He couldn't believe that this pornographic novelist could teach such powerful disciples. He established the Akatsuki organization, and even forced the entire shinobi world to unite. Jiraiya recalled and said, They are orphans left behind by the Second Shinobi World War. I met them in the Rain Country, and accidentally found Nagato's Rinnegan. I thought he might be the child of prophecy, who could bring change to the shinobi world. So I stayed and taught them for 3 years, hoping to lead them to the right path. Naruto couldn't help but ask, then why did they become like this? They are all very good children. Of course, it's because I didn't guide them well as their teacher. Jiraiya said with a self-deprecating smile. After all, I'm just a good-for-nothing ninja. Of course, I can't lead them to the right path. I think I should still have the right to speak as sensei's disciple. Minato looked serious. In my opinion, sensei, although you are a little good, well, you have some true temperament, but under the frivolous surface, you have a kind and sincere heart, and you have perseverance that will never give up. These are the shining points that guided my growth. Listening to Minato's words, Jiraiya felt gratified, but he still sighed. Anyway, it's my fault that I didn't go on the right path. Jiraiya. Sama, you are indeed wrong. But it's not what you did, it's what you saw. Garashi said in a deep voice. I have seen them during the Chunin exam and the Third Shinobi World War. At that time, they were very naive, thinking that they could bring peace to the world by understanding each other. Even now, they are working hard for the changes you mentioned. Shinobi World Revolution. Jiraiya's eyes widened. You mean Yahiko and the others are still fighting for the ideals I guided? Although their methods have changed, I can see that their hearts are still as sincere as ever, and they hope to bring change to the shinobi world. Garashi pursed his lips. It's just that their behavior is too radical and incompatible with this world. That's why they seem to have gone astray. Jiraiya was silent. After a long time, he sighed and said, I didn't expect that as their teacher. I didn't know them as well as you did, understood them, and trusted them. I'm indeed a terrible teacher. Is that really the case? Garashi shook his head slightly. Nagato and the others didn't want to reveal their names before, and it could be explained by self-preservation. But 4 years ago, they were strong enough to participate in the Five Kages tournament, but they still use fake names, which means that they simply didn't want to reveal their names. They were worried that the people they valued would be sad and disappointed after knowing what they did. Jiraiya suddenly looked up. Are you talking about me? Garashi said. I don't know, but it's very likely. Jiraiya fell into silence again. After leaving Nagato and the others, he received the news of their death not long after. He blamed himself, thinking that it was because he taught them ninjutsu and led them into the circle of ninjas that they died. But the result? They lived well, and they never even recognized him, which made him feel that he was abandoned by his disciples. It's because of this that he lost his composure today. But Garashi said that they loved him and didn't want to disappoint him, so they deliberately didn't reveal their identities. Taking advantage of Jiraiya's silence, Shinakushina grabbed Naruto, blinked and asked, Garashi, what do you think of Naruto? Garashi's heart moved, and he had some guesses, but he still said, Naruto is very cute. Shinakushina pressed Naruto's head and tried to promote him. Not only cute but also smart. Moreover, his performance in school is also very good. Minato and I didn't teach him before, but he can compete with the children of the Mikoto family for the first or second place in the class. Even the teacher said that he's a genius. Naruto was stunned. Didn't his mother always say how powerful his father was when she was a child, and how he was a piece of trash? Why is she so different today? Moreover, he used to think that his mother was bragging, but he didn't expose her because he wanted to save her face. These days, he realized that his parents were really powerful, and he was the only piece of trash. Shinakushina was also a little embarrassed. Although Naruto's performance was not bad, it depended on who he was compared to. She and Minato were already geniuses, and Garashi was beyond the definition of a genius. At Naruto's age, he could even develop A-class ninjutsu. Calling him a genius in front of Garashi was like playing with a seal in front of a whirlpool. But for Naruto, she had to go all out. So Garashi, do you want to accept Naruto as your disciple? When Naruto heard this, his heart pounded nervously. Garashi, Sama was a man who calmed the war by himself, regarded as the god of ninja, and even became the leader of the ninja world. In the eyes of these children, he was madly worshipped as a god. If they could be accepted as a disciple by Garashi, Sama, Sasuke and Neji would be crazy with envy. Under Naruto's nervous and expectant gaze, Garashi smiled. Of course, but let's wait until Naruto graduates according to the process. Now is the stage of laying the foundation, and the teachers in the school are better than me. Graduate. Naruto clenched his fists and immediately had the urge to graduate early. But Garashi, Sama also said that now is the stage of laying the foundation. He should practice more in school. Moreover, he had some small ideas in his heart. He wanted Sasuke to perform more and strive to become Garashi, Sama's disciple. Shinakushina also knew that with Garashi's identity, it was impossible for him to have time to teach from the beginning. So she just touched Naruto's head and said in a cold tone, You have to work hard in the future, and don't let Garashi down. Naruto shrunk his neck subconsciously. Why does it feel a little cold? Also, what does mom mean by this? What will happen if he disappoints Garashi-sama? What will happen to his butt? Jiraiya didn't know that his original disciple was gone, and he was still there. I didn't expect that my position as a teacher is so important in their hearts. Thinking of this, Jiraiya's spirit was refreshed, and he slammed the table and shouted, I didn't fulfill my obligation as a teacher before. This time, I must pull them back from the wrong path. P.S. Sorry, the third update is estimated to be 2 or 3 in the morning. Chapter 469. Just when Jiraiya was feeling smug, there was a sudden noise outside. Oh my god, what's that? Meteorites and 3 meteorites. Can the barrier stop them? Dig a hole with earth release and hide underground. Dig at least 20 meters deep. In the midst of the noise, Garashi and the others quickly rushed out of the room. Looking up at the sky, 3 huge meteorites fell in the shape of a triangle. Although they heard Rock Crypsis describe the scene of a meteorite falling a few days ago, seeing it with their own eyes, they couldn't help but be shocked. Is this Uchiha Madara's power? It's terrible. Shocked, Jiraiya glanced to the side. Uchiha Madara, who can pull down a meteorite, is a monster. Then Shushi, who defeated Madara, is a monster among monsters. I heard there was only 1 meteorite at that time. I didn't expect it to be Madara's limit. Shinakushina asked with a dignified face. Garashi, can you stop it? Garashi smiled. This is a challenge they sent me. I'll be back soon. Do you want me to use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu? Minato asked. It's not easy to jump in the air. Garashi shook his head slightly. The Tsuchikage shared the light and heavy rock jutsu in the dream world. I already know it. Minato was a little surprised. The Tsuchikage even used this jutsu. Jiraiya smiled. That old guy looks stubborn, but he knows it better than anyone. Shinakushina frowned and said, the light and heavy rock jutsu is only floating, but it's far less flexible than the super light and heavy rock jutsu. Although it's not the super light and heavy rock jutsu, I developed the wind jutsu with this jutsu. Its flexibility in the air shouldn't be worse than the Tsuchikage. Garashi directly rose into the air and flew to the sky. Naruto's eyes lit up. This is good, I want to learn this. In the Alliance, people who were worried about the meteorite falling through the barrier looked up at the sky, and then they saw a person entering their sight. Who is that, Tsuchikage-sama? Impossible, he's taller than the Tsuchikage. Hey, you're too dark. I know, it must be the leader. Garashi flew in the air and looked at the meteorite in front of him. Although he has many ways to deal with these meteorites, in general, it's more shocking. So, Shushi kicked the meteorite with all his might. In the next moment, the meteorite suddenly accelerated more than 10 times and flew into the distance. Repeated the other 2 meteorites. And the other 2 meteorites. Seeing this, the Alliance's people was a little dumbfounded. The crisis is the Alliance? Because it's 2, it's not real? When the rock while thus it. As then, under the lead of some people, everyone began to cheer. Great, we're saved. The leader is the guardian of the Alliance. As long as the leader is here, we don't have to be afraid of anything. Everyone cheered loudly to vent the fear in their hearts. Even the clouds brought by the war seemed to be kicked away by these kicks. At this moment, on a mountain far away from Woodleaf, from afar, the cheers from Woodleaf and the surrounding villages could be heard. Yahiko and others twitched their mouths and couldn't help but look at the initiator. You don't want to give them confidence, do you? Madara's eyes twitched. How do I know he can fly? Although he knows that these meteorites can't do anything to him. Flying and not flying are 2 different concepts. If he can solve the crisis by jumping up and down like a monkey, he can use this to attack the enemy's morale. Of course, the most important thing is that he can get revenge for the anger he suffered a few days ago. I said that these little tricks won't work, let's fight. Nagato sighed. All right. Madara nodded and then said, Nagato, you control Hashirama to merge with me. As soon as his voice fell, several people around him jumped out a few meters in an instant, and then looked at him with frightened eyes. Madara has never married in his life. Is this the reason? Also, Madara sincerely cooperated with the Akatsuki organization. Is it because he covets Hashirama's body? Tobirama stood cautiously in front of his big brother. Madara has been wrong for a long time. It's not surprising that he said something. Only Hashirama looked inexplicable. He was the one who really understood what Madara meant. What's so strange about merging? Madara used to merge with the Kyuubi. This time, everyone's eyes were even more frightened. They didn't expect that he would not even let go of the fox. Madara's mouth twitched, and he was too lazy to explain to them. Nagato, control him with thousands of hands. Nagato nodded and forced Hashirama's consciousness. The next moment, a huge Buddha statue rose from the ground under the mountain peak. Madara jumped to the top of the Buddha statue and stood side by side with Hashirama. The chakra of Susanoo wrapped the Buddha statue, and the Buddha statue was covered with a layer of purple armor. Might suit thousands of hands Susanoo. When the power of Susanoo merged with thousands of hands, Madara, who controlled this power, found that his and Hashirama's power had undergone some kind of qualitative change. The two forces repel each other and combine into one, giving birth to everything in the world. Sure enough, the combination of the power of Senju and Uchiha is the correct answer. Even in the state of Edo Tensei, our strength will increase exponentially. Madara's mouth rose slightly, and he looked at Woodleaf. Giving up the opportunity to seal me is your biggest mistake, Shimizu Garashi. After solving the meteorite, Garashi returned to the village. As soon as he landed, Naruto rushed over excitedly, dancing with joy. Sushi-sama, you're amazing. You kicked away such a big meteorite with just one kick. I'm just a little stronger. Garashi smiled and then looked at Minato and the other two. Let's go, the war has begun. When Garashi and the other three arrived at Woodleaf Square, the army was almost assembled. If it was a general war, of course, it would be impossible to assemble so quickly. But this war started with Jonin, and their discipline is naturally not comparable to Genin and Chunin. Moreover, the Jonin village only gathered more than 2,000 people. With such a small number of people, it was easy to gather. When everyone arrived, Garashi stood in front of the square and said loudly, "Everyone, I won't say anything unnecessary, but please remember that the future of the alliance depends on us. In this war, our only outcome is victory. Victory, victory." As if to dispel the nervousness and fear in their hearts, everyone shouted loudly. At this moment, in addition to the people who were going to participate in the war, the villagers of various villages also gathered here and heard these cries and joined them. Victory, victory! Garashi nodded and waved his hand. Attack! Chapter 470. Outside the barrier, Nagato led the Edo Tensei army to attack the barrier. From time to time, there were small forces attacking the barrier, but Nagato ignored them completely and kept throwing ninjutsu. He was very clear about the current situation. The key to the decisive battle was the barrier. If he could break through the barrier and catch the Jinchuriki, it would be worth it even if the entire Edo Tensei army was sealed. After all, the Edo Tensei had a time limit. Even if it wasn't sealed, it wouldn't last for more than a few days. Under their fierce offensive, the barrier that gathered the power of 70,000 to 80,000 people felt like it was about to collapse. Close to their attack area was the Takajin village. At this moment, a group of Takajin villagers were looking at the mountain like giants and trembling. Among all the attackers, the most shocking one was undoubtedly the combination of Hashirama and Madara, a 1,000-armed samurai with a long sword in each arm. The combination of the two accounted for at least 95% of the total damage. A casual aftershock escaped, leaving a bottomless canyon on the ground. It's terrible. How can there be such a monster? Why did they choose our Takajin village? Don't worry about the newly built village, run to the central area. Takajin leader Shigaya's eyes widened, and he wanted to ask Kakuzu-senpai, how did he escape from such a monster in the past? Under his despairing gaze, another round of slashes came down, and it was as if something had split open. The barrier that enveloped Takajin flickered and was torn apart, turning into countless light fragments. This result was so smooth that Nagato and others couldn't believe it. But thinking about it carefully, they understood. The combination of Hashirama and Madara is far stronger than a simple combination. Woodleaf's people also miscalculated. Seeing that the barrier began to heal, Nagato didn't have time to think and quickly ordered them to rush to the gap in the barrier. However, after a few people rushed in, the speed of the barrier's recovery increased dozens of times. And in the blink of an eye, most of the gap was healed. Not good, it's a trap. Nagato's face changed, and he ordered Hashirama to control the Buddha statue to slash at the gap. His reaction was quick, but someone else was quicker. Almost at the same moment the Buddha statue moved, a figure teleported out. When he landed, he changed his direction and jumped toward the Buddha statue. Then, he threw a heavy right punch at the Buddha statue's chest. Boom! It was clearly a scene of an ant trying to shake a big tree, but in the end the big tree was beaten back several steps. What a heavy fist! It's the kid named Shimizu Garashi. Madara's eyes were cold, and he didn't think of anyone else with this kind of physique. Garashi is amazing. Nagato took a deep breath, and he finally understood what kind of pressure Madara was under last time. Garashi stood in the air with his arms crossed. It seems that the power of fusing with the first die has given you the courage to challenge me once more. Madara's eyes twitched. Challenge? In the past, it was always him who said such words to others. Now that he heard similar words from the mouth of his enemy, it really made him unhappy. Without communication, Madara directly manipulated the Buddha warriors to chop down, and the slashes of 1,000 swords converged into a sword storm that tore everything. 1,000 swords got slaying. At this moment, even the line of sight was blurred and distorted, and the sound was isolated. It was as if the swords cut a vacuum and cut off the light. Even across the enchantment, everyone could feel the sharpness of the swords, like a knife scratching their faces. This is called power. Madara stood calmly on the top of the Buddha statue with his arms crossed. The attack frequency of thousands of swords, the hardness of Susanoo, plus the qualitative change of chakra after the fusion of the two, and even the acceleration of Rinnegan's repulsion. Such an attack is definitely not something that human beings can block, even if he is in his heyday. As for whether Shimizu Garashi will use the Flying Thunder God to avoid it, he doesn't care. Anyway, behind him is the enchantment. Moreover, those who came out with him can't use the Flying Thunder God. Thinking of this, Madara's eyes were playful. Dodge or resist, what will you choose? Looking at the overwhelming swords, Garashi said a few words in his heart. Sage mode. Hashimantanku open. The next moment, a steady stream of power emerged from every corner of his body. The speed of the storm was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Garashi was swallowed up, but he didn't care at all. He just calmly clenched his fist. It's a feeling I haven't felt for a long time. With his current strength, he can easily suppress anyone. Except for the sneak attack 4 years ago. He hasn't used these two modes for many years. However, not using them for so many years doesn't mean that he is unfamiliar with them. He exercises his body day after day, and even uses the demon's method to destroy his body. He has already tempered his control of his body to the peak. He can quickly adapt to any surge of power. Even the Hashimantanku and Sage mode, which have reached the peak of power, is incomparably tame in his body. I've been invincible for so many years, but I've never slacked off for even a single day. Although it's my own choice, it's always a little lonely without an audience. Today, I'll have to trouble you to help me experience the fruits of my cultivation over the years. Outside, Madara's playful eyes became dull and disappointed. He felt that the other party's chakra didn't disappear. That is to say, the other party chose the second way. It's stupid. In order to protect the people behind you, you don't hesitate to take risks. When a person carries all hope, any risk is stupid. It seems that I still think highly of you. But at this moment, a powerful chakra rose from the storm, and then, the sword storm was torn apart by a blue airflow. The sword storm, which was sharp to the extreme, seemed to be able to cut the space, but it was torn apart. This scene made Madara's eyes widen, and there was a faint ominous premonition in his heart. Sure enough, a light rushed out of the center of the storm and rushed straight to the Buddha statue. There was no movement of punching or kicking, just a simple collision, like a sharp arrow piercing the outer layer of defense of the Buddha statue. So fast. Madara's pupils suddenly shrank. Although his Rinnegan could capture the other party's movements, his body's reaction couldn't keep up at all. Just as he was about to retreat, he was sent flying by Shushi's punch. Before he could stabilize himself, he was kicked back by Shushi, who chased after him. Like a ball, he was kicked back and forth. Bastard, stop it! Madara was furious, but his struggle was of no use. Even his main body was much slower than Shushi in terms of speed and reaction time, let alone the Edo Tensei. In just a second, Madara was kicked hundreds of times by Garashi, and finally, he was caught in his hand. You want to dance with this level? Chapter 471. It's reasonable to say that such a big decisive battle should be on the verge of breaking out, with fighting and death everywhere. But in fact, it's completely different. As soon as they were ready to fight, they were attracted by the battle above. It's impossible not to be attracted. The aftermath of the battle can kill them. If they're not careful, they might die. The same is true for the Edo Tensei. When they resurrect, it's the easiest time to seal them. At this moment, they were staring at the sky, their eyes full of disbelief. Madara is gone. Are you kidding? That guy named Shimizu Garashi was not so fierce a few days ago. Susanoo with thousands of hands. Such a defense is as fragile as paper in front of him. I don't know how such a monster was born in this era. Compared to their shock, the members of the alliance were overwhelmed with excitement, especially after Shushi said dance. Many of them were extremely excited. The leader is so domineering. I didn't expect that the gentle Garashi-sama has such a domineering side. Are you kidding, Garashi-sama has always been very strong to the enemy. In the past, he rushed into Kirin's camp to kill Sandaime. Ahem, harmony. Uchiha Madara's face was gloomy. He was defeated in the case of combining with Hashirama. Moreover, this bastard's arrogant look is somewhat like his style. Garashi waved in the direction of the battlefield. Kurama, he will be sealed by you. Kurama's ears stood up, and his claws popped out of the meat pad. Hey, I will take good care of him. Madara's face was black. Let my summoned beast seal me. Is this how you humiliate me? Garashi shook his head slightly. I have no interest in humiliating you. I'm just helping a friend fulfill a wish. Friend? That beast. Madara sneered, and then the corner of his mouth rose slightly. Also, you don't think you really won, do you? What do you want to say? Garashi said, and suddenly his face changed, and he was hit by an invisible force. Although there was a sudden change, he still held Madara in his hand. Madara was not surprised. A top ninja like Shimizu Garashi will not be affected by accidents. However, what happened to him was not just an accident. The invisible force was like a gangrene attached to the bone, especially the arm that was holding Madara, which was the focus of attention. If he hadn't covered his right hand with armament haki, his wrist might have been cut off. Seeing Garashi repeatedly dodging and retreating, but there was no one around him. Even with chakra, he could not detect the presence of enemies. Everyone was puzzled. Was Lord Garashi fighting a battle of wits with the air? If they didn't know that Garashi wouldn't betray them, they would have thought that he was acting. After dodging a few times, Garashi seemed to have understood something. He changed direction in midair and charged straight at Nagato. Is this guy's hand made of steel? It's okay. Madara was wondering when he saw Garashi attacking Nagato. He couldn't help but chuckle. You're the god of ninja of this era. You found the secret so quickly. However, it's no use. Lungo, border prison, is not something that mortals like you can break. Sure enough, when Garashi's fist fell on Nagato, Nagato's position was replaced by a special existence, and his body appeared in the distance in an instant. Tomb of Samsara, borderland prison? Shushi repeated, pretending not to know. Although he was caught in Garashi's hand, and his posture was somewhat indecent, Madara calmly explained. Oh, you should know now that Nagato's Rinnegan was transplanted by me. So what he used to play was not the real strength of Rinnegan. At least, he can't use my exclusive dojutsu. Garashi asked. Exclusive dojutsu? Is this the Wheel Tomb border prison you were talking about? Madara nodded calmly. Yes, I gave him permission to use it. As for its function, it is to attack with a shadow that you can't see or perceive. Moreover, This shadow can also defend and change position. In addition to the fact that Lungu, border prison, is really incomprehensible to people who have not stepped into the realm of the six paths, revealing the information is harmless. Madara also had a small intention to tell others that the person who finally defeated Shimizu Garashi was actually him. After all, he was defeated by Shimizu Garashi twice in a row, and it was a fiasco. He also wanted to save some face for himself. Hearing Madara's explanation, everyone was afraid. How can you fight an enemy that you can't see or perceive? It's difficult to attack the body directly. The shadow can be exchanged with the body in an instant. That's how he escaped. Uchiha Madara deserves to be called. We still underestimated him. Fortunately, it's Nagato who used his eyes. If it's him, the situation may be worse. And Garashi seemed to be attracted by him. He just exchanged positions with Nagato and pretended to be dissipated. Finally, he saved Madara from Garashi's hands. Madara, who was out of control, rubbed his neck and smiled. Oh, it seems that I have to add one more thing to you. Taijutsu is ineffective against the shadow. Hearing this, everyone was shocked again. They have witnessed how strong Garashi's taijutsu is. If taijutsu is ineffective, it will undoubtedly be one less big weapon. Garashi's expression was calm. I'm a medical ninja. It's not a big deal if I can't use taijutsu. Madara jumped back to the top of the Buddha statue and almost fell from the top of the statue when he heard this. Medical ninja? Which medical ninja can kick meteorites and tear Susanoo with his hands? After taking a deep breath and calming down, Madara said, the second round, start again. But this time, we're just an assistant. Your opponent is Nagato. Nagato's mouth twitched slightly. He only asked the assistant to shut up. If it weren't for Madara's authority, he would have shut him up. However, Madara obviously didn't realize this. His outbreak is maintained by Sage Mode and Hashiman Tonku. As long as we survive this outbreak period, we will win. Nagato nodded slightly. This suggestion was quite reliable. Garashi's expression was a bit subtle. Outbreak. Although he is indeed in a state of outbreak, it may be different from Madara's understanding. First of all, his Senjutsu chakra was almost endless. It would be a small problem for him to maintain it for a few days. As for the 8 inner gates, as long as he didn't open all 8 gates, he could still withstand it. Therefore, this explosive period of his might be a little longer than 100 million years. Chapter 472. Compared with the outside world, the inside of the barrier was a whole different world. Since most of Nagato's energy was used to deal with Garashi, the Reikage, and the others who were separated by the barrier just sat down and chatted. Good job. The Reikage nodded in appreciation. Separating us from the others will make it much easier to seal them. Haha, Garashi. San never makes mistakes. And those idiots in the Akatsuki think that he miscalculated. If it were me, I wouldn't even need to think about it to know that it was a trap. I said disdainfully. The Reikage's mouth twitched. That's because you fell into his trap too many times during the Third War. I wasn't angry, instead, he was a little proud. Being able to let Garashi-san trap me so many times without much loss. Doesn't it prove that I'm powerful? Uchiha Madara, and the first Hokage, didn't even get this treatment. The Reikage didn't know how to evaluate his open-mindedness, but he had to say that this attitude may be more suitable for today's ninja world. On the other side, Tobirama was constantly flashing in the crowd, and no one could stop him. It's troublesome. Only space-time ninjutsu can deal with space-time ninjutsu. Muttering like this, Tobirama suddenly found that his bitterness was taken away. A ninja with yellow hair and blue eyes appeared in front of him with a gentle smile. I heard from the Akatsuki that Wood Leaf has 2 people who can use the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. One is Shimizu Garashi, and the other is Namikaze Minato. You are Namikaze Minato, right? After all, he was the first Kage, and the second Kage who developed the Flying Thunder God Jutsu. So Minato introduced himself very formally. Naidame-sama's eyes are like a torch. I am the 4th Naruto Namikaze Minato. The 4th Naruto Namikaze? Tobirama was a little surprised, as the Akatsuki didn't mention this. But he didn't doubt that the other person was lying, as there were other wood-leaf people around. You actually became a Naruto at such a young age. Tobirama nodded in appreciation. Suddenly he realized a problem. Wait, is Shimizu Garashi not Naruto? What he meant was, you can't abdicate at such a young age, can you? Garashi is naturally more suitable than me to become Naruto, but... Minato looked at him cautiously. I stepped down from the position of Naruto, because Danzo and the Akatsuki set me up. His purpose was to make himself the next Naruto. Tobirama's eyes widened. Wasn't Danzo his disciple? What's going on with the Akatsuki? Did Monkey and Minion not stop him? Minato said apologetically. Sandaime-sama did stop him, but he didn't succeed. As for Mitokado Hamura and Udatane Koharu, they also supported Danzo to become the next Naruto, but now they have resigned because of suspected collusion. Tobirama's face turned black. He had a total of 6 disciples. 1 was confirmed to be framed, and the other 2 were suspected of collusion. What did he teach them? In the other direction, looking at Kakashi, who had changed a lot, and even one of his eyes was blind, White Fang wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he could only sigh. I'm sorry. Kakashi's eyes were complicated. While dealing with his father's attack, he said, although I don't agree with your approach, you did it to protect me, right? White Fang was surprised and somewhat gratified. You've grown a lot, Kakashi. This is not what growth taught me. Kakashi shook his head slightly. After you died, I thought you were a coward, and desperately wanted to prove myself. It wasn't until Senpai came to me and told me the various possibilities behind your suicide that I understood that what I saw was not necessarily the truth. At first, when Kakashi mentioned Senpai, White Fang had some doubts, but he quickly reacted. The person you are talking about is Garashi, right? Kakashi nodded and said gratefully, I have encountered many misfortunes, but the only fortunate thing is that I met Senpai. White Fang was shocked. Kakashi was still young, so it was not surprising that he couldn't understand, but Garashi was only 1 year older than him, and yet he had such insight. Compared to him, his son, who was called a genius, seemed to be insulting this title. Indeed, I should thank Garashi. White Fang sighed and said, come on, let us father and son have a good fight. Let me see what level your Hataki swordsmanship has reached. Hataki swordsmanship? I haven't used it for a long time. Kakashi shook his head and pushed up the forehead protector covering his left eye, revealing a scarlet eye with a big windmill pattern. Sharingan? And it's a Manjikyu Sharingan. White Fang looked confused. Does his family have the blood of the Uchiha? Outside the barrier, looking at Garashi, Nagato said with emotion, finally, it's come to this point, let's decide the outcome of this war. However, Garashi shook his head slightly. No, you have lost. Nagato said thoughtfully. Do you mean that I used the power of Madara? I didn't mean that. Garashi sighed. Although you didn't meet her, Shinakushina, San has always been concerned about your safety, but you let people catch her. And Jiraiya, San, he taught you carefully, but he didn't want to be the teacher of the great devil. Even those who first joined the Akatsuki, what will they think of you now? Isn't it a failure to let the people who care about and worship you down? Nagato was stunned and subconsciously looked at his teacher, people, and followers on the battlefield silent. If Garashi persuaded him with reasons such as hatred and pain, he had a lot of words to refute. But when it came to disappointing these people, he couldn't justify it. Jiraiya stood up and said with self-reproach, I'm sorry, Nagato. I shouldn't have brought my personal feelings into teaching you. I shouldn't have let you carry my will. I shouldn't have forced your future to be connected with the prophecy of the great Toad Sage. Don't live for my ideals, live for yourself. Nagato's eyes struggled and hesitated. Seeing that Nagato was about to be affected by the mouth, Madara frowned slightly. This guy's will is too weak. However, it doesn't matter. Now I should be able to exert some influence. Madara's eyes were cold, and he didn't release the authority of the Rinnegan out of kindness. The Rinnegan's powerful chakra and eye power will make people lose themselves. When the Rinnegan was transplanted, Nagato was still young. In order to avoid Nagato being affected, Madara sealed part of the Rinnegan's ability. Therefore, Nagato was not overwhelmingly powerful before. Now, while unsealing the Rinnegan's powerful eye power, Nagato will gradually be affected by the Rinnegan's erosion. He can already interfere with Nagato's will a little. Chapter 473. After the darkness in his heart was magnified by the Rinnegan, Nagato stopped struggling and asked calmly, "You said you were wrong?" Jiraiya nodded hard. "Give me a chance and give yourself a chance." "Ridiculous." Nagato laughed. "When we were suffering from the war, no one cared about our life and death. Later, when we worked hard for peace, no one cared about our opinions. Finally, when we were killed by reality, no one cared about our voice. Now you want us to give up. Don't you think it's too late?" Jiraiya opened his mouth and couldn't close it. Although he taught them ninjutsu, at the beginning, it was because of Nagato's Rinnegan that he made this decision. Therefore, his purpose was not simple. Seeing Jiraiya didn't speak, Nagato laughed. "Nothing to say? Then accept the punishment of God." Shinra Tensei. 5 times the repulsive force broke out in an instant, and Jiraiya was bounced out. Seeing this, Garashi frowned. He was not surprised that the shadow of Luanmu could use ninjutsu. Even the shadow clone could use ninjutsu. As a high-level shadow clone, there was no reason why Luanmu couldn't. What he really wondered was, did Nagato have a sudden attack? Why did he call himself a god? Could it be that after Madara released the Rinnegan, he was infected by his Chinibu soul? Garashi looked at Madara subconsciously. Noticing Garashi's eyes, Madara was shocked. "Did you notice that Nagato's change is related to me? You're a monster who is stronger than me and Hashirama. You're so sensitive." Seeing Nagato raised his right hand again, Garashi's figure flashed, and he took the initiative to meet him. His speed was extremely fast, almost like lightning, but Nagato didn't panic at all, and he easily changed his body with the shadow. "It's no use. Can you be faster than the reaction of the mind? As long as the Rinnegan can capture your movements, you can never attack me. How do you know if you don't try?" Garashi exhaled a breath of cold air, and fine ice crystals filled every corner of the space. "You want to use ice escape to sense the existence of the shadow?" Nagato sneered. "These shadows are not just invisible. They only materialize when I need them. No, these ice crystals are used to lock onto your position." As soon as he finished speaking, Garashi appeared in front of Nagato and threw a punch. How could it be so fast? Nagato's pupils suddenly shrank. He didn't have time to think and quickly switched places with the shadow. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, Garashi followed him like a shadow. Nagato kept moving and Garashi kept teleporting. "He used the Flying Thunder God technique on me? Oh right, it's those ice crystals." Nagato woke up and couldn't help but be surprised. He actually used those ice crystals as the Flying Thunder God's technique. How precise is his control over chakra? However, this trick was not difficult to crack after knowing the principle. Shinra Tensei. After switching places with the shadow again, Nagato quickly used the repulsion to bounce all the ice crystals on his body and around him. Not only that, he also used the repulsion to form a protective shield with a radius of 3 meters around him, to prevent those invisible particles from approaching. Garashi, whose teleportation was interrupted, stopped inside. "What a pity. If I was faster, I would have caught you." "It's really a pity, because I won't give you another chance." Nagato clapped his hands. Chibaku Tensei. When the strong gravity came from his side, Garashi quickly understood. Nagato used the shadow around him as the core of gravity. The weakness of Chibaku Tensei was that as long as the core of gravity was broken, the gravity would disappear. But these shadows were in an invincible state, which meant that the process of Chibaku Tensei could not be interrupted. What was even more troublesome was that the shadow even used a strong man lock and grabbed onto his arm. In this way, even if he used the Flying Thunder God technique to teleport, he would still be the target of the seal. Large chunks of rock flew toward Shushi, as if they were trying to seal him in a sphere that was gradually taking shape. Playing Chibaku Tensei with the shadow of the Tomb of Luin. Oh, it's quite fun. Madara's mouth was slightly raised, and he was very satisfied with Nagato's performance. The people fighting below also saw that Garashi seemed to be at a disadvantage now, and they were nervous one by one. No, the leader is in danger. No, I can't get close. Damn it. As long as I get close, I will be sucked. If you can't get close, let me remotely. Bordered Soil looked at Garashi with Sharingan, intending to transfer Garashi with Kamui. He was so absorbed in injecting his power that he didn't even know that Madara was behind him. Bordered Soil, shouldn't you give me back what you owe me? Hearing the voice behind him, Bordered Soil's hair stood on end. Before he could react, Madara pressed the back of his head and slammed him into the ground. Now give me back the life you owe me. In the gradually forming sphere, Garashi sighed. I wanted to leave this ability to a stronger enemy, but now it seems that it won't work. A stronger enemy? Nagato wondered, is there an enemy stronger than him and Madara? Garashi asked, can your gravity capture light? As soon as his voice fell, Garashi turned into a stream of light and flew out, leaving the shadow in a daze. And he didn't know what happened. After escaping from the meteorite, Garashi appeared almost instantly beside Bordered Soil and Madara. Speed is power. Have you ever been kicked by light? Garashi raised his right foot and kicked toward Madara. What? Madara suddenly turned back. Even with the power of Rinnegan, it was too late to react. He saw a light in front of him, and then he flew out like a cannonball. It was really like a cannonball, smashing countless trees and mountains all the way, leaving a gully more than 10 kilometers long on the ground, almost flying directly out of the border of the country of fire. This shocking scene made the whole battlefield speechless. What level of power is this? Madara was beaten again. But this is too powerful. I just blinked my eyes, and the situation was reversed before I could react. Like Kirin, who took the Byakugan, even his body was trembling. I can't see. I can't even see the Byakugan. Where did Madara go? Even Garashi himself was a little surprised. The Sage Mode plus the Hashiman Tanku pushed his speed to the limit. Coupled with the light release, this speed is beyond human understanding. That is to say, his control of his body has reached the peak. If it were someone else, they might accidentally rush out of the country. Nagato took a deep breath and asked, what is this? Garashi raised his right hand, and a light flashed on the tip of his index finger. This is the Kekkei Jinkai I developed. It's called Light Release. Chapter 474. Hearing Garashi's introduction, everyone couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Kekkei Jinkai? Light Release? Is it similar to Steel Release, where the whole body turns into light? This is no longer the god of shinobi, but a real god. Everyone sighed from the bottom of their hearts. They were not surprised that Garashi could develop Kekkei Jinkai. After all, he had developed 2 Kekkei Jinkai 7 years ago, and it was reasonable for him to develop Kekkei Jinkai now. What they were really surprised about was that the combination of light release and Garashi's own body could exert this kind of power. Like the Tsuchikige's dust release, although powerful, but the charging time is too long, the hit rate is low, and the deterrent effect is greater than the actual combat effect. But Garashi's light release is not only extremely fast, but also terrible, and a pure physical attack can destroy the world. The third Mizukichi couldn't help but joke. Inoki, why is your dust release so weak? Inoki's tone was calm. It's not light release that's powerful, but Shimizu Garashi himself. The speed of light release is too fast, and the charging time of dust release is too long. It's a flaw in itself. If it's someone else, they may lose control and kill themselves. By the way, if I can make dust release instantaneous, it will definitely be more terrible than light release. Hearing Inoki's words, everyone gradually calmed down. Indeed, although light release is powerful, the real powerful one is Garashi himself. The third Mizukichi said, oh, so you're saying that as the user, you're too useless, and can't exert the strength of dust release? Inoki wasn't angry and said coldly, compared with him, who isn't a waste. At least, I wasn't beaten to death by him when he was a teenager. The third Mizukichi's mouth twitched. In the sky, Nagato took a deep breath. It seems that I still underestimated you. Garashi didn't comment and asked with a smile. You said before that as long as you see me, I will never catch you. So can you still keep up with my speed now? As his voice fell, Garashi turned into light and dispersed. Nagato opened his eyes wide and pushed his eye power to the limit. Even so, he still couldn't see Garashi's movements clearly. Without any warning, he felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen, as if his internal organs had been shattered. Then Nagato, who was sent flying, spat out a mouthful of blood in midair. In fact, this was Garashi holding back. With the kind of strength that Madara withstood, a person without the Edo Tensei body can explode with one punch. Everyone could understand. After all, they still had hostages in their hands. Before rescuing the hostages, it was not good to kill them. Although his body was in severe pain, and his consciousness was a little blurred, Nagato gritted his teeth and let Hashirama control the Buddha statue to attack him. Although he couldn't see Garashi's movements, he could attack his surroundings indiscriminately. You're still struggling on your deathbed. Garashi sighed. His body turned into light, and then expanded infinitely. In the end, he turned into a giant of light that was several times taller than the Buddha statue. Seeing this scene, everyone was silent. Madara's Susanoo was big enough, but compared to the 1,000 hands, it was like a child, and in front of this giant of light, the 1,000 hands Buddha statue also became a child. Has the battle between ninjas become a competition of size? The giant of light raised his right foot and stomped down on the wooden puppet. The giant didn't seem to have a physical body, but it had infinite heat, and the wooden statue was directly annihilated in this blazing heat. Even the wood release that can absorb chakra didn't have time to transform. Nagato was shocked. Hashirama's wood release could absorb Madara's Susanoo, but against this giant of light, it was destroyed after absorbing a small part of it. Without much time to think, Nagato hurriedly summoned the 4 shadows back to his side to protect him. The shadows that can nullify physical attacks were like an absolute defense for him. After dealing with the wooden Buddha statue, Garashi sealed a part of Hashirama and threw it in the direction of the battlefield, while he separated a small light man and flew towards Nagato. Nagato still didn't have time to react, but he didn't move at all. Using shadows to protect yourself? Garashi understood, and directly split the giant into tens of thousands of small light men and surrounded Nagato. After all, his shadows couldn't be tightly stitched, and as long as there was a gap, light would enter. For a while, Nagato was surrounded by tens of thousands of small light men, and the scene was very bloody. It's over. Seeing Nagato being beaten so miserably, whether it was the Alliance or the Akatsuki, everyone thought so. Konan couldn't help but cry and shouted, "Nagato, admit defeat. It's not over yet." Nagato roared, and in the space where no one could see, the 4 shadows merged into his body. His originally thin body suddenly swelled up, and his muscles bulged, turning him into a muscular man. Then, under everyone's incredulous eyes, he summoned the Geto Mazo and let the Geto Mazo swallow him. The next moment, except for the eye that absorbed the Sanbai, the other 8 eyes opened at the same time, but what appeared in them was the image of Rinnegan. Using Rinnegan to replace the eyes of the other tailed beasts? Even Garashi was a little surprised by the change in front of him. From the appearance of the Geto Mazo swallowing the tailed beasts, it was the process of opening the eyes, then directly using Rinnegan to replace the eyes of the other tailed beasts? In a sense, Nagato's method was somewhat similar to how he defeated the Jubi in the past. The difference was that he lacked the outer shell, so he used Ryamayaka chakra to replace the outer shell. But Nagato lacked the core, so he used Rinnegan to replace the core. However, his Ryamayaka chakra was almost endless, and it could sustain the consumption of the Jubi, but with Rinnegan as the core, chakra was still lacking. Nagato could successfully summon the Jubi, because he forcefully merged with the shadows. Under Garashi's gaze, the Geto Mazo's withered body became a little rounder, and then with a roar, the sky suddenly became gloomy. Dark clouds covered the sky, lightning flashed, and a huge tornado that connected the sky and the earth began to wreak havoc. The ground collapsed, and magma surged, as if it was the end of the world. Seeing this, everyone in the Alliance panicked. Naturally, they would not forget the scene in Mithra's prophecy. In that prophecy, The Jubi had the power to destroy the world. It's over, it's completely over this time. Damn it. Didn't they say that only by gathering all 9-tailed beasts can the Jubi be summoned? Don't panic. The Jubi in front of us is still very different from the one in the prophecy. I know. He used Rinnegan to forcefully awaken the incomplete Jubi. With Leader Sama here, there will be no problem. Garashi was indeed very calm, although Nagato's move was a bit unexpected. Not to mention the incomplete Jubi. Even the complete Jubi was absorbed into a Jinchuriki. In his opinion, it was just so. Chapter 475. Most importantly, the shadow of the tomb of Luan was not permanent. Once the time was up, the ferocious Jubi would turn into a husky. Of course, the others did not know this. Under everyone's fearful gaze, the Jubi roared like a beast and spat out a huge Bijidama. Garashi stood in the path of the Bijidama and opened up a space-time barrier to transfer the Bijidama away. The next moment, a terrifying energy shockwave came from afar. Even though they were more than 10 kilometers away, everyone could feel the ground shaking violently. Seeing this, the Jubi seemed to have been provoked and shot out 3 more Bijidamas. Garashi raised his eyebrows and split into 3 clones. 2 of them opened up a space-time barrier with his main body while the last clone went to the Jubi and used it as a coordinate to transfer the Bijidama to it. The Jubi's eyes were filled with confusion before it was swallowed by the terrifying energy storm. There was a loud roar as if heaven and earth had exploded. The energy shockwave radiated in all directions and caused the barrier to tremble violently. Seeing this, everyone was overjoyed. Did they kill the Jubi just like that? However, the smiles on their faces soon disappeared. After the shockwave dissipated, although there were a few large holes on the Jubi's body, they were almost healed quickly. Everyone could not help but be shocked. The destructive power had only caused some superficial wounds on the Jubi's body. How were they going to fight it? Just as they were worried, many of them realized that the Jubi that should have gone crazy had calmed down. Its eyes that were filled with destructive intent had also become much calmer. The next moment, Nagato's voice came from the Jubi's mouth. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for helping me regain my consciousness. When Nagato spoke, he still had some lingering fear. He did not expect that the incomplete Jubi's consciousness would make him lose his consciousness. Fortunately, after being blasted a few times, the Jubi's beast consciousness was temporarily suppressed, and his consciousness regained the upper hand. Seeing that Nagato had regained his consciousness, everyone could not help but look solemn. Although the Jubi was ridiculously powerful, it was still a beast without intelligence. That was why it could be easily tricked. Now that Nagato's consciousness had gained the upper hand, the situation was completely different. Garashi said calmly, "It's only temporary. In your current state, you'll be devoured by the Ten-Tails consciousness sooner or later." Nagato did not deny it. "You're right, so I want to make a deal with you." He knew very well that his Ten-Tails state could not be maintained for long. It was impossible to defeat Garashi in this short period of time. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of the fact that the others were not aware of the situation to decide the outcome, using his death in exchange for the others' lives. "A deal?" Garashi asked. "I can suppress the Jubi's consciousness and let you seal it." Nagato took a deep breath. "As a price, I hope you can let the others go and promise not to hunt them down." Before Garashi could say anything, Konan and Yuhiko spoke up fiercely. "No, the 3 of us agreed to be together forever. I am the leader of Akatsuki. If you want to capture someone, it should be me. Do you think this is grocery shopping? Do you think you can bargain?" Nagato scolded harshly, then looked at Garashi and said, "With my current strength, if I completely go berserk, I can definitely bring huge losses to you. You don't want to see this happen, do you? Moreover, with you in the shinobi world, they can't make any waves at all." Everyone was a little moved. Of course, winning at the lowest cost is the best result. For a ninja, benefits are eternal. Just like Inoki ambushed the 3rd Reikage, and Garashi killed the 3rd Mizukage. But aren't the various shinobi villages allied now? However, in the end, they didn't make a sound, and just looked at Garashi with expectant eyes. Under everyone's gaze, Garashi asked, Aren't you afraid that if I agree with you, I will turn around and catch them? Nagato shook his head slightly. If I can't even trust you, then there is no one in this world who can be trusted. Even the members of Akatsuki didn't refute this. Even if they stand in a hostile position, they have to admit that there is no one more perfect than him in this world. I can promise you, but... Garashi looked to the side. Yahiko is right, others can be forgiven, but he as the leader naturally can't leave easily. Nagato was anxious. But Yahiko Yahiko laughed loudly. Nagato, have you forgotten what you just said so quickly? Don't bargain. Conan said loudly. Then I won't go. However, Yahiko and Nagato said in unison. No, you have to leave. You. However, Garashi was too lazy to listen to their bitter play. Nagato, pay attention to suppress the Jubi's consciousness. Hearing Garashi's voice, Nagato nodded the Jubi's large head and said, I will. Garashi took out a blank scroll, came to the top of the Jubi's head, and pressed down on it. 8 trigram seal. The Jubi was removed from Nagato's body, degenerated into the appearance of the Geto Mazo, and then sealed into the scroll. Nagato, on the other hand, fell from the air, exhausted. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but smile with relief. The war was over, and in the end, justice prevailed over evil. But at this moment, the barrier seemed to have gone out of control and completely opened. What's going on? Why did the barrier suddenly open? Be careful of the Akatsuki's conspiracy. Oh no, it's Uncle Aizen. Seeing everyone looking at him vigilantly, Nagato's heart tightened, and he hurriedly explained, This is a misunderstanding, I can make him, Nagato said, and suddenly hugged his head and cried out. Conan Yahiko asked nervously, Nagato, what's wrong with you? Nagato suddenly looked up, and Madara's voice came out of his mouth. Ahahaha, why are you in such a hurry to leave? The show has just begun. Seeing this, everyone couldn't believe it. Isn't he the caster of the Edo Tensei? How can he be controlled by Madara? Is this guy pretending to be a ghost? Garashi said in a deep voice. It should be the erosion of the Rinnegan. Nagato's consciousness may have been affected long ago, and coupled with the battle with the Jubi, it has greatly accelerated the erosion of his will. Nagato looked up to the sky and laughed like an Uchiha. As expected of Shimizu Azushi, you saw through my plan so quickly, but it's too late. He's already turned into my shape. Come on, let the war begin again. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the Edo reincarnation moved once more. Not only that, the traces of the White Zetsu army appeared in the distant hillsides and jungles. Chapter 476. In the distance, the army of White Zetsu surrounded them. Although it was still very far away, the terrifying number made everyone suck in a breath of cold air. Why are these monsters acting together? Isn't this clearly organized? Didn't they say that these monsters are completely out of control? I know it must be because of Uchiha Madara. Didn't that guy Bordered Soil say that the creator of Black Zetsu and White Zetsu is Uchiha Madara? Looking at these monsters, everyone's scalp tingled. If these monsters were gathered together, a few large-scale ninjutsu would be enough to eliminate them. But the problem is that the area of the alliance is dozens of times larger than a single ninja village, and the front line is stretched many times. Plus the barrier is out of control in all aspects. It means that the place they have to guard is expanded from Takajin to the entire alliance. With more than 2,000 of them, it's really difficult. After all, even hundreds of thousands of pigs will take several days and nights to kill. Not to mention the army of White Zetsu with average strength above Chunin. What was even more troublesome was that the experts of the Edo Earth reincarnation had already begun to rush into the barrier. We must restart the barrier as soon as possible to block those monsters outside. Yes, it will take about 2 minutes for those monsters to rush over. This is our chance. Having said that, the enemy is obviously not so easy to stop. This is different from the previous time. The barrier that was broken by Susabuto was only broken by a big hole. But now it's completely broken, and the difficulty of intercepting is more than 10 times higher. This was especially true when the Edo Tensei were charging forward with their heads down. Seeing the critical situation, Garashi flew into the air, flew high enough to have a panoramic view of the entire alliance, then raised his hand and shot a large number of light bullets. Yasukani no Magatama. A rain of light poured down, bursting out terrifying energy fluctuations, engulfing all the enemies close to the barrier. Seeing this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Inoki couldn't help but sigh. As an enemy, he is as frightening as a nightmare, but as a teammate, he is extremely reliable. Jiraiya muttered softly, "Garashi is too abnormal. He's like a monster." Garashi wanted to continue attacking, but Nagato controlled the repulsive force to fly into the sky and stand in front of him. Who would have thought that the arrangements I've made for over 10 years would be destroyed by a brat like you? I didn't expect that you would still dare to stand in front of me. Garashi narrowed his eyes. I heard from Bordered Soil that you transplanted the Rinnegan into Nagato in order to resurrect yourself. Are you planning to show me your resurrection ability? Nagato's mouth twitched, and he was silent. Did he have to say that he didn't want to revive for the time being? Just like that kick from before, if it wasn't for Edo Tensei, he would have been kicked to death. Under such circumstances, it would be better to maintain the Edo Tensei state. Of course, it was still necessary to undo the Edo Tensei and not be controlled by the caster. Although I can't let you experience resurrection, I can show you the perfect eye technique that can change reality. At this moment in the enchantment, no one knows when Tobirama broke away from the battle and came to the underground of the Uchiha Shrine. He found the scroll placed behind the stone tablet and unsealed the 5 Sharingan from the scroll. Then Tobirama, who was indirectly controlled by Madara, used the Flying Thunder God Jutsu to teleport to Nagato's side and took out the Sharingan and handed it to Nagato. Then, the tool that had completed the mission fell from a height of several thousand meters and fell to the ground with a plop and was revived. Garashi's eyebrows twitched wildly. Is the revenge so obvious? Nagato said coldly. These Sharingan were originally prepared for Hashirama in the Battle of the Valley of the End. I didn't expect to use them on you. Izanagi, Garashi's eyes were strange. That is to say, you were going to use shameless tactics, but later found that even if you can resurrect several times, you are not the opponent of the first Hokage. So you fake your death to get away? Nagato's face was a little embarrassed, and he said, that's because Izanagi can't recover his chakra, and that bastard Hashirama used Mokuton to suck my chakra away. Haha, Garashi responded with a kind smile. However, Garashi's kind laughter was full of sarcasm in Madara's ears, and he couldn't help but be furious. Bastard, are you laughing at me? Although Nagato is not your opponent, with these Sharingan, I can always hold you for a few minutes. Nagato was close to his limit in the previous battle, but Madara didn't care about this and forced his body to refine it. After all, the Uzumaki clan is famous for their chakra, so it's still possible to squeeze in. Soon, the battle began again at a height of thousands of meters. Without Garashi's restraint, the battle below became difficult again. Although the Alliance has been trying very hard to intercept, they still began to miss people. In a short span of 10 seconds, a few people had seized the opportunity to rush in, and those who rushed in either used their perception to search for the Jinchuriki, or wantonly destroyed, shouting the name of the Jinchuriki, forcing them to appear. The battlefield was chaotic, and no one noticed that Bordered Soil, who was sent back to the village because of serious injuries, suddenly distorted his face, and a black stick came out of his body. Bordered Soil was awakened by a sharp pain. These things are the black sticks made by Madara with Yin-Yang release? Damn it, when did it happen? In his mind, suddenly flashed the picture of him thanking Madara. But Madara said that there will be a day for him to repay his kindness. Was the seed planted by him at that time? Bordered Soil tried to make a sound to remind others, but at this moment, there was a familiar laughter in his mind. As expected of Madara-sama, I can't let you disturb him. Bordered Soil was frightened. Black Zetsu, you're not dead? Bordered Soil, you're still the same as before, stupid and cute. But talk about the old days later, you'd better sleep first. No, don't. Bordered Soil struggled, but soon fell into darkness. At the same time, inside the enchantment, Han and Killer Bee stayed in an ordinary house. Bastard! Do you want us to hide like a coward? Let those bastards call our names? Han shouted angrily. Killer Bee also didn't want to rap. The Jinchuriki is originally a weapon. How can you hide your weapon? Because you're worried about being stolen. The people who arranged the soundproof enchantment smiled bitterly and comforted them. Please calm down. Your safety is not as simple as personal honor. If you let the Akatsuki get you, the whole world will be destroyed. Han said coldly, if I lose, I will commit suicide first. I will not fall into the hands of the enemy. Killer Bee also said, don't worry, we still have the courage to commit suicide. Chapter 477. Everyone in the class looked at each other, but the class leader refused. No, this is Garashi-sama's order. Hearing this, the two were a little irritable. Ah, don't you know how to be flexible? Now the situation has changed, and the enemy has rushed into the barrier. Do we still have to watch here? The class leader firmly refused. No means no, unless there is Garashi-sama's order. At this moment the door suddenly opened. Everyone in the room suddenly became alert, and then they saw Bordered Soil, covered in blood and with a swollen face, came in. Uchiha Bordered Soil? What's wrong with you? Although they didn't have a good impression of Bordered Soil, everyone in the room relaxed a little. Uchiha Madara beat me, Bordered Soil explained, and then said, it's no longer safe here. Garashi-sama asked me to transfer them to my space. Garashi-sama's order? The class leader was happy at first, and then hesitated. How can you prove that this is Garashi-sama's order? The battlefield changes rapidly. Garashi-sama can only inform me. Do you want me to take out a written notice to you? This. He hasn't agreed yet. But Killer Bee and Han made a fuss again. No, I will never hide in there. This guy is a traitor. His words can't be trusted. Bordered Soil said with a straight face. This is Garashi-sama's order. At this time, someone in the class suddenly asked, wait, didn't you always call Garashi-sama senior? Bordered Soil's face froze. Damn, how do I know what he called Shimizu Garashi? Madara cursed in his heart. After all, he just forcibly controlled Bordered Soil's body, not searched his memory. Seeing that everyone's eyes became alert, Madara knew that it would not work to trick them into going in by themselves. Even a sneak attack would be difficult, because of their vigilance. He must give them a strong dose of medicine, because that man rejected my confession of love. I don't want to call him that anymore. Bordered Soil said painfully as if it brought back a certain memory. What? Everyone's mind was greatly shaken, and they were directly dumbfounded. Madara took this opportunity to quickly suck Han and Killer Bee into the space with Mangekyo, and then let Tobarama, who was on standby outside, take him away. This series of unforeseen events caused everyone's minds to shut down, and they were unable to react in time. After a long while, someone could not help but ask, could it be that Bordered Soil betrayed Sir Garashi because of love? The squad leader of the enchantment class glared at him fiercely. This is clearly Akatsuki's ruse. Quickly inform Garashi-sama. But on the way out, even he was muttering to himself. Could it be that hate was really born out of love? After all, with Lord Garashi's charm, it was not impossible for both men and women to be attracted to him. However, there was no need for them to inform him. In the sky, the bright light was like a sea of light, drowning Nagato. 1,000 strikes per second. Even if he forcibly activated the Tomb of Reincarnation and used the Shadow Defense, under this powerful attack, he died once in a few seconds. In less than half a minute, Nagato was already dead. His flame-like red hair turned white, and he laughed wildly while coughing blood. It's really a storm-like attack. Fortunately, I finally caught up. I won't leave this last life for you. After that, Tobarama suddenly appeared beside him, and he was also drowned in the sea of light, and his body exploded instantly. But after all, Tobarama was the Edo Tensei, and the next moment, he disappeared with Nagato with the incomplete body that was constantly repairing. The sea of light calmed down and converged into a tall figure. Looking at the place where Nagato disappeared, Garashi thought, is Black Zetsu going to stay here this time? In his mind, Black Zetsu must have a purpose for faking his death. There is no reason not to intervene in such an important occasion. Or did he see Madara regain the initiative and put his hope on Madara? However, it doesn't matter. If he doesn't plan to come out, he will live in my shadow forever. After abandoning these distracting thoughts, Garashi released his perception, but he could no longer perceive the coordinates of the bordered soil. Oh, erased the flying thunder god Jetsu I left on the bordered soil? Garashi was not too surprised. It's normal to sense the Jetsu left by Nidame, the creator of the flying thunder god. However, if you think you can get rid of me like this, you are too naive. Garashi whispered and expanded his perception infinitely. His perception ability is extremely powerful, and he can listen to the sound of all things in sage mode. And almost half of the ninja world is included in his perception. The next moment he smiled slightly. Found you. At the same time, in a cave on the border of the Land of Lightning, looking at Nagato and the bordered soil standing in front of him, Madara's eyes were slightly gloomy. Although Nagato's fusion with the Jubi gave him a chance, he also let the Geto Mazo be sealed by Shimizu Garashi. In this case, even if he is ready to resurrect the nine-tailed beasts, he is still short of the last step. Madara frowned. It seems that I can only retreat first, wait for Shimizu Garashi to relax his vigilance, and then use the shadow of the Tomb of Reincarnation to steal the seal scroll. Although it's a bit shameful to use the exclusive ability of the Rinnegan to steal things, he can't care so much. I'll let you be happy for a while. Just when Madara made a decision, a strong light that almost blinded his eyes suddenly broke out. Madara couldn't help but close his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Garashi standing beside Tobirama and sealing him. No, even with Madara's temperament, he had a feeling of desperation at this moment. The other side sealed Tobirama at the first time, apparently worried that he would let Tobirama escape with them. As for the space transfer of the bordered soil, he knew very well that the ability of the bordered soil will have a certain delay in transferring other living things. This delay may not be a big deal for the average person, but in front of a strong enemy like Shimizu Garashi, a little delay is a fatal flaw. It seems that we lost. Madara naturally won't compromise and smiled. But I'm a little curious, how did you find us here? Garashi shrugged. Sorry, I don't have the habit of explaining to the enemy. There's no way to explain it. Madara narrowed his eyes. I asked Tobirama to take us to transfer many times in a row, until we reached the border of the Land of Lightning. We are separated from the center of the war, by more than half of the ninja world. But you still locked us in the first place, indicating that your perception is extremely powerful. And the range of your perception covers almost half of the ninja world. In other words, you actually have the ability to uproot the Akatsuki organization. But you haven't done so. Why? Chapter 478. Shishi did not panic at all. Instead, he asked with great interest. Oh? Why? Madara looked straight into his eyes. Because you want to use the threat of the Akatsuki to rule the world. And you did do it. Garashi looked relaxed. You are a villain who tries to destroy the world. Who will believe the slander of the hero who protects the world? Who dares to believe it? Hearing Garashi's meaningful words, Madara nodded. Indeed. Don't say that your disguise is perfect. Even if you show flaws one day, people who find this will deny it from the heart, and even take the initiative to help you hide it. Because people like you can't be evil, otherwise, it will be the most terrible disaster in the world. Shushi sighed. Really, I told you not to slander me. Madara laughed out loud. I don't want to pull you down. I just want to prove that I didn't lose to people like Hashirama, but to people like me. Like you? Garashi smiled. Do you deserve it? When such arrogant words came out of his perfect mouth, it gave people a feeling of extreme disharmony. Madara's face was black, and he snorted. You're just relying on your strength to do what I can't do. Garashi smiled. With this understanding, it shows that you don't really see the world at all. Hearing the conversation between the two Black Zetsu, hidden in the bordered soil, had a kind of fear from the heart. Because even he didn't see Shimizu Garashi's hidden nature. In terms of playing tricks, he is Madara's ancestor. But the difference is that Madara is a scheming ninja world, and he is a filial son who cleaves the moon to save his mother. With different horizons, one would see different things. Madara sees the light that embraces the darkness. He pushes himself and sees the infinite love. This guy is terrible. Black Zetsu trembled. He used to be afraid of the strength and growth of the other party. But now, he is more afraid of the other party's means and temperament. Sitting back and watching the disaster happen, and even adding fuel to the fire, yet receiving everyone's praise, toying with the whole world in the palm of his hand. Such a person was truly too terrifying. Thinking of this, Black Zetsu hid even deeper. He did not dare to make any movements for fear of being discovered by the great demon king. I didn't see the world clearly? Bana sneered. It's because I see the world too clearly that I want to transform it. Transform? Garashi shook his head slightly. Letting the whole world live in falsehood is called escaping. Madara was not surprised that Garashi knew about the Eye of the Moon plan. He just sneered. You are still too young, so you will have such an idea. In another 10 or 20 years, you will find that everything you are doing now is in vain. After you die, the order that you establish will fall apart, the peace that you created will be shattered, and the false happiness will be replaced by war and pain. Human nature is the root of all disasters. As long as there are people alive, the pain will continue to be passed on. Only in the world of dreams, tragedies will not repeat themselves. Garashi rubbed his chin. This problem is not difficult to solve. Madara frowned. Not difficult to solve? Yes, the premise of the future you guessed is that I die. Garashi clapped his hands. Then I just have to live forever? Inside the bordered soil, Black Zetsu thought of his mother and hesitated. Am I just going to watch? Rinnegan Bijou and the Ghetto Mazo were all in front of him. If he missed this time, he may have to wait for thousands of years. After all, he did not have Rinnegan, nor the convenient ability of the shadow of the Tomb of Reincarnation. It was impossible for him to retrieve the Ghetto Mazo by himself. Just when he was hesitating, Garashi's words struck his mind like lightning. Yes, if he touches the field of immortality. If it was someone else, he would never have such worries. But Shimizu Garashi is different. That man is always climbing, and always pushing the limit. He was the god of shinobi 7 years ago, but he never slacked off. With such a strong mind, maybe he can really touch that field. If Shimizu Garashi touches the field of immortality, then he will never be able to save his mother. So this may be my last chance. Looking at Garashi's unguarded back, Black Zetsu felt that his right hand was ready to move. This is the last chance. Although there is great fear ahead, in the end, filial piety overcomes fear. Black Zetsu is going. Outside, Madara's pupils suddenly shrank. You want to pursue the mystery of immortality? Garashi laughed. As long as I can live forever, there will be no more wars in this world. Madara's voice was low. Indeed, if you live, all ambitious people have to consider your influence, because you are the world's biggest ambitious person. Garashi sighed. It's too much to say that a kind person like me is an ambitious person. Garashi suddenly turned around and grabbed the wrist that stretched to his back. Don't you think so, Black Zetsu? Black Zetsu's body was stiff, and he was sweating. You know I'm not dead? Of course. Why? Bordered soil is clearly. Garashi laughed. This is because I fully trust the IQ of bordered soil. It's not reasonable for him to kill the enemy. Black Zetsu opened his mouth wide, and the whole person was stupid. Just because of this? Madara frowned. Black Zetsu, since you are not dead, why don't you contact me? Black Zetsu was still thinking about how to fake his death and quickly said, Madara, you were controlled by Nagato before. I didn't dare to expose myself. Garashi chuckled. Uchiha Madara, do you know why I said you didn't see the world clearly? Madara frowned. What do you want to say? Garashi laughed. You let bordered soil control the life of Nagato, and you control the life of bordered soil. Have you ever thought that your life may be controlled by others? Black Zetsu shivered, and this development seemed to be a bit wrong. My life is controlled by others? Madara snorted. My fate has always been in my own hands. Yes, bordered soil thinks so too. Garashi nodded. Madara felt insulted. Don't compare me with that fool. I think you are very similar. Garashi's mouth was slightly raised. Aren't you all being played by Black Zetsu? Black Zetsu. Madara sneered. Didn't Bordered Soil tell you that Black Zetsu is my consciousness? Garashi was amazed. That's really interesting. Bordered Soil told me that Black Zetsu was born after he was saved by you. And you injected his consciousness in front of him. But why did I meet him in the Battle of Ghostlight City 2 years ago? Don't tell me that's time travel. Chapter 479. Even if he saw Shimizu Garashi's ambition, and even heard him say that he wanted to seek immortality, Madara's expression changed greatly for the first time. Is what he said true? Madara stared at Black Zetsu and asked. Black Zetsu's eyes showed a look of confusion. I don't know. Could it be that my future self, or my parallel universe self transmigrated here for revenge? You really dare to say that? Garashi shook his head and sighed. However, I obtained part of your body from you. After years of research, I found that part of your body has existed for thousands of years. Don't tell me that you accidentally traveled to 1,000 years ago, and then slowly survived to the present? Black Zetsu was silent. Although he could continue to argue, it was meaningless. At best, he could only deceive Madara. And Shimizu Garashi had already determined that he had a problem in his heart. In this case, it was impossible to hope that the other party did not pay enough attention to him, and thus faked his death to get away. Seeing Black Zetsu's performance, Madara knew that Garashi was right about the truth. Thinking of Garashi's words about his life being manipulated, Madara couldn't help but ask. When did you start to exert influence on me? Black Zetsu glanced at Shushi and thought to himself, now I have to find a way to get closer to him. I have to tell him everything he wants to know. Then when I mention my mother and the dominator of the 6 paths, I have to change my mind slightly. Thinking of this, Black Zetsu looked at Madara with sympathy and sarcasm. From the time you were born, your life was under my control, including the meeting with Hashirama, the death of Izuna, the interpretation of the stone tablet, the awakening of the Rinnegan, and even the rebirth after death. All of it is fake. All of it is what I want you to see. Madara's eyes were wide open. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible. Black Zetsu laughed. The same thing happened to Nagato and the Bordered Soil. You think it's reasonable, but when it happened to you, you can't accept it? Do you think you're the only special one? Think about it. Why did you and Hashirama meet so coincidentally? Why were you the only one who could open the Rinnegan? Why did you discover those white Zetsu? Of course, it's all because of me. You have to thank me. Madara closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths to calm down. Maybe what you said is true, but the confrontation with Hashirama and the relationship with Izuna are also true. My life is definitely not as worthless as you say. It's Madara. He calmed down so quickly. Black Zetsu said. But that's it. The meaning of your life is fake. How pitiful. What about you? You tried so hard to make me open Rinnegan, and let me use infinite Tsukuyomi. What is it for? Madara asked coldly. Here comes the highlight of the show. Black Zu calmed himself down and said, it all starts with, wait. Before he could finish speaking, Garashi had sealed him away. Madara's mouth twitched, and the guy who let others speak halfway was the most annoying. Putting all the distracting thoughts about Black Zetsu behind his head, Madara asked coldly. It's reasonable to say that you can't let me go back to the Pure Land when I know your secret. Being sealed is the best result. But why do you want me to know this? Is it to tear apart my pride? Secret? I don't have any secret. I said don't slander me. Although the world thinks that you're vicious and cruel, you still want to bring peace to the world. Shushi sighed tiredly and said, although the world thinks that you're vicious and cruel, you still want to bring peace to the world. Didn't you know it from the Bordered Soil? Now you want to laugh at me? Madara said unhappily. I'm not that bored. Garashi laughed. It's just that your dream is over. Would you like to help me achieve my dream? You heard it just now. Black Zetsu has existed for thousands of years. It can be seen that immortality is not an illusion. Madara was shocked. He was just confused by Black Zetsu's words. He He ignored the fact that Black Zetsu lived for thousands of years. Even Black Zetsu can do it. There is no reason why Shimizu Garashi can't do it. Not to mention immortality. As long as Shimizu Garashi can live for thousands of years like Black Zetsu, he can make the concept of peace become the iron rule of the world. Having said that, Madara was still puzzled. With your strength, what can't you do? Why do you want to borrow my strength? It's not that he belittles himself, but Garashi's strength is too strong. If they fought at full strength, even 5 of him might not be a match for the other party. Just like the gap between him and Hashirama, and those Kage. It's not in the same dimension. In this case, he really doesn't think he can play any role. When facing an unknown and terrifying threat, we have to fight for every power we can, Shishi said solemnly. Madara squinted. Interesting. What is the threat that even people like you are afraid of? Is it the existence that Black Zetsu was about to say? Yes, but not all of it. Madara sighed heavily. I can help you, but don't get me wrong. I'm not being coerced by you, or becoming your subordinate. It's just because you pulled out Black Zetsu. I'm repaying the favor for the dead Izumi Nai, Garashi said with a smile. Of course I understand. Madara crossed his arms. Tell me, what do you want me to do? Garashi asked with a smile. I don't know if you have heard of the paradise I built called Dream World. Dream World? Madara frowned slightly. I've heard of it. That's easy. Garashi clapped his hands. I'm going to seal you in the Dream World as a world boss for everyone to conquer. Fighting is always the fastest shortcut to improve strength. With Uchiha Madara's contribution, the overall strength of the ninja world will be greatly improved. Although he didn't understand the meaning of the world boss, Madara could still understand the general meaning. Therefore, his face instantly darkened. You want me to play house with those kids? How can it be? Garashi appeased. Those who are qualified to attack you are at least the elites of the Jonin. Isn't that just playing house? Madara said angrily. Anyway, it's also a kind of improvement for you. Garashi said. When the threats I said come, I may have to call back the first Hokage-sama. At that time, you can also perform better than the first Hokage-sama. I'm stronger than him, Madara emphasized first, and then said. I play with them at most once a day. Of course, once a day is enough. That's not bad, Madara said, and suddenly his face changed. What the hell is that? Chapter 480. The battle on the battlefield was still going on. Hearing the news from the enchantment class, everyone in the alliance was stunned. What? Bordered Soil betrayed us again? I already said that traitors can't be trusted. Don't jump to conclusions too early. The leader vouched for him. Maybe it's a trap? It doesn't seem unreasonable to say that. At this moment, the Edo Tensei army suddenly stopped fighting, and one by one, they made a sound of surprise. Ah, we seem to have regained our freedom. It's true, no one is controlling us. Seeing this situation, everyone on the alliance's side was jubilant. Haha, I said that the leader's plan is perfect. He must have defeated Uchiha Madara. In other words, is the war over? Don't go, be careful of the enemy's trap. You are too careful. No, the war is not over. Look at those monsters, they are still fighting. Everyone suddenly came to their senses and looked ahead. The horde of demonic creatures had become even more ferocious. What's going on? Why are these monsters still fighting? I know the Edo Tensei are controlled by Nagato. Garashi, Sama defeated Uchiha Madara, and Nagato took back the sovereignty of the body. So the Edo Tensei stopped fighting. But these monsters are different. They are controlled by Uchiha Madara. After he was defeated, he still didn't give up the idea of killing these monsters. Damn, Uchiha Madara is really the source of disaster. What about the barrier? Hasn't the barrier been repaired yet? The repair was interrupted halfway. It should be that the enemy is still among us. The barrier can't be counted on for the time being. There is no other way. Seniors of the Edo Tensei, please help us fight against these monsters. The people of the Edo Tensei naturally wouldn't refuse their request. The Raikage laughed. Haha, little guys of Yunin, fight with this old man. Wu reminded. Don't get close to us, be careful of Uchiha Madara controlling us to betray him. Although they had their help, they didn't relax much. There were too many monsters, and they weren't afraid of death at all, rushing madly into the barrier. No matter how strong they were, they felt powerless in the face of such an attack. Moreover, they did not have much chakra left. After all, not everyone is a monster like Hashirama and Garashi. After the battle, they don't have much chakra left. In less than half a minute, more than 10,000 monsters were killed or injured. But there were still hundreds of monsters that broke through the defense line and rushed into the barrier. Although these demonic creatures were killed in time, it still made everyone break out in cold sweat. Although there were still 100,000 ninjas and warriors in the barrier, most of them were Chunin and Genin. Their average strength might not be comparable to those monsters. Moreover, most of the people in the barrier were ordinary people who accounted for more than 98% of the total population. Once those demonic creatures rushed into the central area, it would definitely cause a huge number of casualties. Damn it! Lord Garashi has done so much for us. Can't we even handle such a small matter? No matter what, we have to defend this line of defense. Even if Chakra dies of exhaustion, he will die on the battlefield. Chakra isn't enough? In Shinakushina's space of consciousness, Kurama waved his claws. Shinakushina, lend them my chakra. Kurama, aren't you very reliable? Shinakushina praised. I'm not helping them. After all, those bastards came for the tailed beasts. I can't just sit back and watch. Kurama snorted and said. Got it. Shinakushina waved her hand, then ran on the battlefield and lent out chakra. Everyone who received chakra was instantly energized. Is this the Kyuubi's chakra? It's so strong. It's just 1,000th of the chakra that it divided, and it's more than 10 times more than what I can refine. However, among these exclamations, there was one who thought it was too little. Jiraiya shouted, Shinakushina, let the Kyuubi lend me some chakra. Jiraiya, Samayu. Shinakushina noticed that there were 2 toads on Jiraiya's shoulders, and his face was covered in red stripes. It was obvious that he had entered Sage mode. I have a way to deal with them. I just need the Kyuubis and your help. Jiraiya said in a deep voice. Noticing the movement here, Minato said, Jiraiya, sensei, please speak. Everyone was resisting the attack of the White Zetsu army, while listening to what he was going to say. Jiraiya increased the volume of his voice so that it reached everyone's ears. These monsters are distributed in a very wide range. If you want to kill them with one blow, the general release technique is far from enough. Only the sound wave genjutsu can do it. But even the sound can't be transmitted so far. So I will summon a large number of toads as sound transmitters, so that the sound can be transmitted from the toads' mouths. And what you have to do is to escort these toads to various positions and protect them until my genjutsu is completed. Everyone was an elite of the village, and after a little thought, they had the answer. This method is indeed feasible. However, it seems that there are very few powerful sound wave genjutsu in the ninja world, right? Jiraiya quickly said. The next genjutsu is the strongest genjutsu that the 2 sage of Mount Myaboku can use after hundreds of years of practice. Thanks to the rise of Garashi, everyone was no stranger to senjutsu, and seeing him speak so seriously, they were relieved. Jiraiya added, in order to ensure that the sound network can cover every corner, the number of toads should be no less than 300. That is to say, at least 300 jonins will be transferred, and the preparation time of the genjutsu is relatively long, so the pressure of the defense will be very great for a while. Everyone looked dignified. They have already lost some of their focus before, and if they transfer 300 jonins, it will undoubtedly make the defense even more difficult. Not to mention, they also have to divide their attention to protect the toads. At this moment, a firm voice came from behind them. Senpai, go ahead, leave this to us. A large number of ninjas and samurai came out of the enchantment and joined the team to block the enemy. What are you doing? Unlike them who still have spare energy to communicate during the battle, although these genin and chunin joined the battle valiantly at the beginning, they were soon in a hurry and had no time to answer them. The strongest among these people said, the enchantment failed again. Instead of wasting time inside, it's better to join the battle together. There are still half of the people left in the enchantment. Even if there are fish that escape the net, they will be stopped by them. Speaking of this, the group of jonins no longer refused. Okay, let's all fight together. Chapter 481. With the addition of this new force into the battle, the pressure on everyone was indeed reduced a lot. But correspondingly, the Alliance army, which originally had no casualties, began to suffer casualties. In fact, the number of injured almost increased at a rate of hundreds per second. Seeing this, Tsunade shouted, "Shinakushina, let Kyubi lend me some chakra." Oh, Shinakushina hurriedly lent out chakra. Chakra was supplemented by Tsunade's hand seals and pressed on the ground. Summoning technique. Tsunade's own chakra, coupled with Kyubi's chakra, instantly summoned a supergiant slug comparable to a small mountain. "Lord Slug, sorry to trouble you," Slug said softly. "I know." In the next moment, its mountain-like body instantly split into countless small slugs, which scampered towards the wounded. "Phew, we're saved. With Tsunade-sama's summoning beast, what are we afraid of? Watch me charge forward." In this defense battle, Jiraiya and Tsunade were not the only ones who performed well. Raikage rampaged on the battlefield. Tsuchikage's firepower was the strongest output. Kazakage's gold sand could attack and defend, and Mizukage's two blood Genkai were flexible and changeable. Not only them, but also those famous Jonin, who were reincarnated by the Edo Tensei. Each of them performed extremely well. Finally, the time was up. Jiraiya shouted, "Cover your ears." Immortal Technique Magic Toad Song. When the last note was sung by the two great sage, it was as if the space was distorted. Everyone felt as if the world was spinning. Although they were only affected and covered their ears, the terrifying sound still caused a certain amount of mental damage to them. As for the White Zetsu army, they fell to the ground foaming at the mouth, their bodies twitching from time to time. No one was spared. Hiss! What a powerful sound wave illusion! Just now I couldn't move my body. I thought that even time had stopped. After the shock, everyone couldn't help but cheer. "Is it really over this time? Haha, we won. San Crypsis, well done. Hee Rock Crypsis isn't bad either." This is the power of unity. It allowed us to defeat such a powerful enemy. After sighing with emotion, someone else asked, "Where are the people of Akatsuki? Did he run away during the chaos?" "TSK, they're lucky. It doesn't matter. Didn't Lord Leader say that we can spare anyone other than the two leaders?" At this time, someone suddenly exclaimed, "Look, isn't there someone from Akatsuki sitting on the wooden dummy?" Looking in the direction he pointed, a man wearing black-rimmed glasses was sitting lazily on a broken wooden figure, looking down as if he was watching a show. Is this guy really a member of Akatsuki? Although the look in his eyes is a little annoying, he's not wearing a black coat with red clouds. Maybe he was the one who caused the barrier to fail. In order to not attract attention, of course I can't wear their iconic clothes. "Hey, who are you?" However, the man above did not answer. Instead, he sighed. "It's over just like that. I'm really disappointed." Understanding the meaning of his words, everyone became alert. Below, Mifune had a complicated expression. "Aizen, it's really you. I heard your name from the bordered soil a few days ago. I thought it was a misunderstanding. Of course it's me." Aizen smiled slightly. Without waiting for Mifune to continue, it couldn't help but mock him. "The Akatsuki has been destroyed, and you still dare to show up?" Rock Crypsis, who suffered the most from the Akatsuki, also stood up. "Why are you talking so much? Just arrest him." For the sake of the overall situation, they let go of the Akatsuki's remnants. But now that he dared to jump out, of course, they won't let go of this opportunity to take revenge. However, Sarutobi shook his head slightly. Now is not the time to complicate matters. He took the initiative to stand up. "Are you one of Yahiko Nagato's men? They have already admitted defeat. You don't have to struggle. Although they are useless leaders, they are still the key to another world. I can only rest assured if I hold them." Aizen chuckled softly. Everyone looked dignified, from the tone of the other party. It seems like he doesn't care about the so-called leader at all. The key to another world, what does this mean? Could it be that the enemy is deliberately mystifying things? Although they didn't quite understand the meaning of the other party's words, they still knew that he wanted to save people. The rock Crypsis almost burst into tears. Don't tell me you want to fight 100,000 people? You want to save people from the leader's hands? That's too funny. Aizen wasn't angry. He just took off his glasses and jumped down from the top of the Buddha statue. I'm not good at fighting. I prefer to exchange hostages. Hostages? The faces of the Jonins changed. They shouted at the Genin and Chunin. Hurry up and leave, don't get caught by him. Aizen couldn't help but laugh. Don't misunderstand, I'm talking about hostages. All of you here. Everyone couldn't believe their ears. What did you say? All of us here? To answer the previous question, I'm not fighting 100,000, but 500,000. Aizen said and snapped his fingers. Then, under everyone's horrified gazes, the demonic army that had been knocked out by the illusion stood up again. Seeing this scene, many people were stunned. How is this possible? All of us tried our best to do this, but he did it alone. They weren't afraid of the demonic army. They were afraid of the man named Aizen. The two sage of Mount Mayaboku joined forces, thousands of Jonins and 50,000 Chunin. They held on for more than 10 seconds to defeat the enemy. But what about the other party? With just a snap of his fingers, he had awakened all those mentally damaged magical creatures and controlled them. The gap between them was simply indescribable. Looking at the man walking towards them step by step, everyone's breathing became rapid. Is this his true strength? Controlling hundreds of thousands of people in an instant. Is this guy the god of illusion? So illusion can be this powerful. Speaking of which, Aizen actually used a trick. In his normal form, even he couldn't radiate his illusion to a range of hundreds of square kilometers. To be able to do this, he borrowed the power of the dream world. It's just that the dream world and his power came from the same source. Even Otsutsuki couldn't see through it 4 years ago, let alone them. Seeing the fear in everyone's heart, the Jonins encouraged him. Don't be afraid. We've already defeated the enemy before. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just 1 against 5. Hearing this, Aizen snapped his fingers again. In that case, 600,000 will be better than 2,000. The next moment, the 100,000 Chunin changed sides, leaving the Jonins dumbfounded. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.